Hey guys, what's up? Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. Links below. I appreciate it. Thanks. So I'm going to follow up and kind of answer some questions that I saw about this last video about neutral versus combos. What is more important, right? And of course, you know, the thing is, whatever's going to win, whatever factor wins you the match is most important, that particular match. Sometimes it could be a simple knowledge check, something stupid that the opponent isn't ready for that could win you the match, right? But I want to talk about this, and I would hope it was obvious because I tried to touch upon it before, and you know, I make so many videos about game theory, but someone brought up Street Fighter 2 and Jeff Schaefer and Tomohiro and how he goes off by what they say, timing, distance, and reaction. So neutral is more important than combos. This is an argument, though, that you got to remember Street Fighter 2 is not the same as Guilty Gear per se, or Dragon Ball FighterZ, or Marvel vs. Capcom, whatever, right? Of course, neutral, if we were just talking about from a Street Fighter 2 perspective, yes, you would probably lean towards more neutral, right? Because what is a combo in Street Fighter 2? Like, I'm going to use this example, and I've used it so many fucking times, right? And this is going to sound like I'm talking shit about Street Fighter 2 for a second, and I'm not trying to, right? But when we talk about the progression of games and everything like that, one of the progressions of games is during Street Fighter 2, Jimmies, people that were mad that they weren't winning, were angry that too simple of things had too much of an influence on a match. Simple quotation marks had too much of an influence on the match and what could win, right? So if we were to look at a game like Guilty Gear, in that video of how I said how the dust loop saved Guilty Gear from being a series that only was surviving to succeeding, and that was because you could see the Street Fighter in Guilty Gear. But to get that basic idea of what made fighting games popular in the first place, those same kind of fundamental Street Fighter concepts, to get that to work in Guilty Gear, you had to use the Guilty Gear mechanics, right? So if we're thinking about it, and I'm trying to relate this to neutral versus combos, if we take this with a grain of salt, if we do the same kind of neutral with, let's say, the same level of execution that we have in Street Fighter 2, if we take that same level of neutral and apply it to Guilty Gear to make these fundamental aspects of what made fighting games famous in the first place, that execution, that pill, so to speak, you are not going to survive off that kind of execution in Guilty Gear. Even if your neutral is better. If you do not have a basic level of execution and, you know, knowledge, whatever, to make, because that's the whole reason that the dust loop made Guilty Gear famous, like I said, because you saw that simple Dragon Punch, throw mix-up, whatever, right? If you just do a Dragon Punch throw mix-up in Guilty Gear, and you have such amazing neutral, and you have that great guessing to make that work in Guilty Gear, well, if you don't have the execution in combos to be dust looping all the time like that, FRCs, whatever, you know what I mean? It's not going to work, right? So I was trying to talk about this in a broad sense, right? But, you know, if you're going to compare Street Fighter 2, we can kind of poke holes in that argument, because Street Fighter 2, compared to you take the red pill or the blue pill, combos are not the same in Street Fighter 2. The combos you use in Street Fighter 2 are not the same as, you know, Dragon Ball, Marvel, whatever it might be, right? There's a different level of execution requirement once you win off of neutral than when you win in Street Fighter 2. Does that make sense? And that isn't me talking shit about Street Fighter 2 whatsoever, because I've said many times before, take a new school player, they could do some kind of crazy combo in whatever new video game it might be, the past 20 years, whatever. Have them try to do Ryu low forward super fireball, they probably can't do it. You know what I mean? It probably blows their brain. They don't have the knowledge and execution how to do it. But hopefully you get what I'm getting at, though. To get the kind of damage that you can get in Street Fighter 2 off of this neutral and fundamentals, to get that same kind of damage in Guilty Gear off of your neutral fundamentals is often not the same, right? Dragon Ball, whatever, Marvel, because moves just don't do as much damage in that sense. Do you get? So there's a little bit of an iffy thing, and I tried to talk about this too. That's why I tried to, and I guess it was kind of missed on people. It was kind of missed, but again, I go back in the video and I talk about it. So I tried to compare it. Take this with a grain of salt. So we have the neutral pill, and because combos are different in Street Fighter 2, I tried to compare it to, let's say that the combo, let's use this a little bit loosely. Let's just say it's the tech monster skill or the lab monster skill, whatever it might be, right? Let's kind of, broaden the term of, a person that just does like crazy combos or tech. Well, in Street Fighter 2, we would think of that as probably the person that has all these different kinds of option selects and all this kind of stuff, which again, I've said before, back in the day, Street Fighter 2, we didn't talk about things like, oh, option select, storing this move, blah, blah, blah. It's not how people talked, right? So of course, though, in Street Fighter 2, as games progressed, whatever, these option selects were found, and you can find players whose neutral is sketchy, maybe, right? Whose neutral is sketchy, but they're so good at option selects, whatever it might be. Maybe they're T-Hawk, whatever, the throw loop DP every time, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? That's a powerful tool. That is a powerful pill that compensates for their somewhat sketchy neutral, right? Now, of course, I've said before, obviously, of course, neutral is important because a lot of these new school players, their neutral is so terrible that you can just beat them with simple tactics, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter that, their execution at this option select is so good because they're never going to get a chance to hit it. But, for sake of argument, you know what I mean? These things exist. The idea that one can compensate for the other if there's not too much of a different, shade of gray is definitely possible, right? You know what I mean? If you have the most if you're 100% rating in your lab monster skill, 100% rating your combo, whatever tech it is, but you're a 0 in your neutral, then yeah, you're not going to be able to beat a person who is, let's say, 60% in this and 60% in that, right? But because no one is perfect, you know what I mean? And of course we have different numbers, you know what I mean? Values, think about a player as like a person in a sports game. They have like different values or RPG, their stat ratings, whatever, right? You know what I mean? It's possible to compensate. And that's what I was trying to get at, that whatever is most important at the time is the most important thing, right? That whatever wins you the match. And I gave that really random example of when I beat Ricky. Perfect instant kill. You know what I mean? It wasn't even so much a neutral. It wasn't so much a combo. It was just a knowledge check won me the match so badly. There's so many different things that can win you the match. So it wasn't me trying to say that neutral is not important. I don't think I said that whatsoever. You know what I mean? Of course I think neutral is important. Like I said, how do I beat so many people? Do you think every time I've beaten people in video games, and I said before, half these tournaments I were winning, more than half, you know what I mean? I won every tournament I entered for like an entire fucking year besides one on disability. And I sure as fuck was not practicing like people want to believe I was, right? And a lot of times what I did just to win those tournaments, because I was not practicing, I just knew that I could play a neutral that was more solid than these other people, right? That's why I say it's always funny, you have people that want to call someone a lab monster or a combo guy, whatever. And, oh, but what about your neutral? Often these people's neutral is not that good, right? That's the ironic thing, really. You know what I mean? Because neutral, there are so many different things that can be neutral, right? It could be so many different variables to what could actually be neutral, right? You know what I mean? Whereas combos, it's either you can do it or you can't do it, right? There's not really in between. There's not a lot of variables generally in games. You know what I mean? So what kind of coping mechanism are you going to do, right? It's like, let me just lie about it because I can't do it, right? You know what I mean? So at least when someone goes, oh, well, my neutral is good. Well, what is your neutral exactly? Well, your neutral could be a fucking ton of different things, right? It could be just your knowledge, a fact check. A neutral could be so many goddamn things, you know what I mean? So it's almost like a coping mechanism. But what about my neutral? What about your neutral? What aspect of your neutral is good? Because guess what? Your neutral is probably shit as well. So Anyway, I was just thinking about that because someone brought up Street Fighter 2. And of course, Street Fighter 2, if you just look at it at face value, they're like, well, yeah, what kind of combos are you really doing in Street Fighter 2 compared to a game in the past 20 years, whatever it might be, right? But then you got to get into remember these newer games, you know what I mean? The damage is so different and what gets you damage off of your fundamentals. So it's kind of a potentially, you know, a nuanced argument, right? So again, both are important, right? And you got to think about your stats as a character. You're in an RPG. What is your stat in neutral? What is your stat in combos? Whatever it might be, right? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's tons of players, top players, famous players that guy's a little bit more known for being his execution. That guy's a little bit more known for his neutral. And whatever attribute they are best at probably is going to be winning them more matches than it's going to be losing. It's not like the other is inconsequential or not important whatsoever. You know what I mean? So, oh, we don't care about combos. That's why we lie all the time about it. Of course you fucking care about combos. You wouldn't lie so much if you didn't care about fucking combos. What is good with your neutral? If your neutral was so amazing, you would be able to compensate that you're not good at combos. But your neutral, you know, I think there's almost like a fairy tale or a, you know, people, like I always say, people want to believe that they are really good at video games. And at the end of the day, there's only so many people that are actually good at video games when you have millions of people that play them. You know? Like you gotta take a look in the mirror. Oh, well, my combos aren't that good, but my neutral's good. What, your combos are a 10% and your neutral's a 20%? I guess during your attributes, but guess what? You're not gonna beat anybody. You know, I mean, if we're looking at like an example might be, oh, say this guy, he's got 50% attribute in combos, 10% in neutral. And he's versus someone who has a 20% in neutral and a 10% in combos. Well, guess who's going to win? It doesn't matter that your neutral's better or whatever, you know. Hopefully you get what I'm getting at, right? Anyway, remember if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. The end.